It started off looking really beautiful first thing this morning. There was a low mist in the bottom of the valley and the sun shining through. The fog has closed in a bit now, but it's still very atmospheric out there and perfect for starting off an autumnal writing vlog. Speaking of which, hello, my name is Amy and welcome to this vlog. It is a really long time since I have made a dedicated writing vlog. The last one was all the way back in March, when I was finishing off the first draft of The Ashen King. Now that book is now edited and out there in the world, and I have definitely moved on to something else. I have spent most of this summer getting towards the end of a draft of an epic fantasy book which I am calling The Dragon Book or Project Dragon. I am currently at about 111,000 words. My initial plan for the draft was that it was going to come in at about 140,000 words. Definitely the longest book I have ever written, but still relatively short by epic fantasy standards. I do think the first draft is going to come in a bit shorter than that. I'm looking now at between 120 and 130,000 words, but I am happy with that because my books do tend to grow in the editing phase. But my hope really this week, or certainly over the course of this vlog, is to finish the first draft. This is a book that has been in the works for many years. I would have to look this up, but I suspect I wrote the first scene of the novel back in about 2020, possibly 2021, but the idea has been floating around in my head for much longer than that. It is part of a setting in which many of my books take place, and so it is really part of the history of that world, a very pivotal part of that history, and I have wanted to write it for a very long time. So let's see if this week I can put the end down on paper and finally wrap up this very long first draft. I typically get around 15 to 20 minutes of writing time in a morning while my partner is doing the school run. It's not a lot to start the day off because I am aiming to write well over 2,000 words a day at the moment, and that takes a couple of hours. But if I can just get those first 500 words down, it really sets me up for the day. I feel like I've accomplished something on my writing first thing. It gets me thinking about the story again, and then I am ready to return to it when the day is done. If you saw my last vlog, I was showing the barn without its roof. And I also showed the beams that were waiting to go on. It has been a pretty momentous day because those beams are now on the barn. There are 6 of them. They were very heavy. They took 4 men and this tractor that you can see here to lift up, but it's done and the rest of the roof can now start to go on. But that's it for this little life and barn update. Now let's head inside and talk writing. So for obvious reasons, I have not done any writing today. I have been definitely preoccupied working outside, running around after the joiners, moving a lot of scaffolding. It has been a very busy day. However, yesterday I did write my 2,500 words. I am getting into the section of the book that is really the wrap up. The big climax is over and we now have a kind of extended denouement. Now this is a tricky section of the book. I always really like writing them, but if I'm not careful, I can let them drag on too long, simply because I enjoy writing these wrap-up scenes so much. But in this instance, I am letting myself run a little bit longer than usual. There simply is a lot to wrap up. This was a very long book. We are now up to 114,000 words. There was a lot of action and a lot of characters. And also the other thing I am taking into consideration here is that this is the first book in a potentially quite long series. I can't hint at everything that is going to happen over what might be 8 to 10 books, but I definitely need to lay the groundwork in these final couple of chapters for things to come. Book 2 is going to pick up quite soon after Book 1 ends, so some of those story threads definitely need to be laid now. And I am actually thinking of possibly outlining or even starting to write Book 2 before I finish the edits of this first book to make sure that they flow from one to the next. So I'm enjoying the writing process where I am now. I can feel myself inching closer to the end of this draft, but I also know I have many thousands of words left to go. I probably have another 4 or 5 scenes left, and like I said, there's quite a lot of information to pack into them, so they're relatively long scenes. I'm still hopeful of being finished by the end of this week or early next week, but we will see how it goes. Good morning. I haven't checked in for a couple of days, so I thought it was time to catch up. This week has been so busy. So much work has been taking place on our house build. We are edging closer to getting a roof on, so that is very exciting. And of course, I have had my day job to keep up with as well. But in terms of writing, the last couple of days I have written just over 2,000 words each day. The book as a whole is standing at 118,000 words. And I have now finished the penultimate chapter, so just one to go. I expect that to be 2,000 to 3,000 words, so I am so close to the end now. And actually I'd intended to write a bit more yesterday evening, but getting to the end of that second to last chapter honestly felt a bit overwhelming. I have been working on this book for so long that coming towards the end of the story and bringing a group of characters together who are going to be together for the rest of the series was honestly quite emotional, and I did not expect that. So after I had finished that chapter last night, I decided to call my writing session early and take a break. I am definitely hoping to get the last chapter written today and tomorrow. I don't think I will wrap it up today, but we will see. And then I'm in a position where I'm both sad to be done with this draft, but very ready to take a break. Good morning. It is a very cold and gloomy Monday. It definitely feels like summer has now properly deserted us. The end of last week was very uneven in writing terms. I took 3 days off overall, which is many more days than I would normally take off from writing in a week. I tend to write 5 or 6 days a week, particularly when I'm trying to finish a project, but I think I really just needed a bit of extra thinking and processing time before I finished the draft of the Dragon book. But it is now officially done. I'm very pleased to announce that. The last chapter was a pretty short one. It came in at about 1,500 words and I wrote that in one sitting. I do think that final chapter might need a little bit of fleshing out in edits, but I'm happy with it for now. It hits the emotional notes I wanted to hit, and it also paves the way for future books, which is very important. And that means that the overall draft has come in almost exactly at 120,000 words. Now that is definitely a chunky book. That is probably the longest first draft I've written, certainly in a very long time. It is on the short side for epic fantasy, definitely, although I do only have one point of view in this first book, so I expect later books to be much longer. This first book book may well expand in edit, as my first drafts often do. My feeling at the moment is that the book is a bit top heavy. The first half is probably a bit long and I might trim that down. Alternatively, I might expand the second half, but I feel like the second half flows better with fewer words. So I think it's most likely that the first half will have to be trimmed a bit. So I have no idea how long the finished book will end up, but we're at 120,000 words right now, and I am happy with that. Writing this book really has been such a roller coaster. I started the draft in the pandemic. The idea for the book had been in my head for much longer than that. There have been numerous false starts. The original first chapter of the book is now chapter 3. I'm not quite sure it works, if I'm honest. I suspect that's one of the things that is going to change when I go back and edit. But I made very slow progress on the book for a very long time. I don't think I had produced more than about 20,000 words in the first 3 years of working on it. But then this summer I really buckled down and decided to finish it, and over the last couple of months to wrap up the draft I have been producing more like 2,000 to 3,000 words a day. And I'm aiming to keep the production schedule pretty fast paced. I have an idea of a publication date for this book in mind. It is going to be tight, it is ambitious, I don't know if I'm going to make it. What it means though is that the book is not going to be sitting for very long before I dive into edits, so you will probably see that in vlogs soon. But before that I am definitely going to be taking a week off. I have some other projects to be working on before I come back to the Dragon book. I also want to start making some outlining notes for the next couple of books I'm going to write, and I also just want to catch up on some reading and perhaps spend a few fewer of my evenings churning out the words. As ever, thank you for being here. I hope your own writing is going well. Please let me know what you were working on down in the comments, and I will see you next time.